Hey guys, and welcome back to the Elevate HD podcast. I am your host, as always, Holly Davidge, and today we are going to be talking about finding your happy place and finding that sweet spot in an off season where you feel good, you look good, and basically where you thrive. Because I think it's so common these days for coaches to put females, especially, through massive, big push up phases where they are just pushing their food up to crazy amounts, where they're gaining a lot of body weight and, as well as that, a lot of body fat. And it leaves these females feeling really uncomfortable, really unconfident, and basically just covering up in baggy t-shirts for their whole off season or for their muscle building phase. So you're going around the gym feeling unconfident, feeling self-conscious, and not wanting to even show off your body. And for most of us, as you should be, we will be spending the majority of our time away from dieting. We're not going to be pursuing a lean body year round. In terms of our hormonal health, in terms of our progress and our muscle building progression, it's really important that we take time away from dieting and spend time in a surplus to build the muscle we want to and to restore our hormonal function, especially if you are a competitor or if you've done a photo shoot where you've achieved a very, very lean physique. This is going to disrupt your health. It is going to impact on your hormonal function. So it's important to spend time away from dieting so that you're not grilling yourself into the ground. You're not just bottoming out your testosterone levels and your thyroid hormones and everything like that. It's really, really important to invest time into time away from dieting in order to maintain your overall health. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't prioritize, especially when you are younger and you don't kind of see the repercussions of what you're doing to yourself. So it is really important to spend time away from dieting in either a muscle building phase or even at maintenance to restore that hormonal function and make sure that you have healthy body fat levels. But as with everything, there is a sweet spot there, because you don't want to be super, super lean year round, but you don't necessarily want to be super, super heavy. And I'm not saying that massive push-up phases are completely unnecessary and unwarranted for everyone, because in some respects and for some people, they are necessary. Like, for example, if you are a figure competitor or you're a female bodybuilder or a women's physique athlete or even a wellness athlete, you need to push up your calories and you need to gain a certain level of body weight and body fat in order to gain the muscle that you need, because these categories in bodybuilding are very, very muscular and heavily developed physiques. So in order to do this, like you kind of need to invest in big push-up phases where you just forget about how you look and almost have to just trust the process and know that what you're doing is going to pay off when you diet down again. But for the most part, in terms of bikini competitors, in terms of photo shoot clients, in terms of people who just want to get in shape for a holiday or for an event, these massive push-up phases are just not necessary for you, because walking around feeling sluggish, feeling lethargic, packing on a lot of body weight, feeling heavy, they're not going to be productive in terms of your goals. Because if you think about it, if you are pushing up your calories, you're gaining body weight really, really quickly and gaining body fat along the way, you're going to feel heavier. You're going to feel less cardiovascularly fit, which as a result is going to impact your performance. Like if you're doing higher rep sets and you don't have the fitness or the capacity to perform at that level for a longer period of time, that is going to negatively impact your performance and also your results in the gym. As well as that, I know myself, walking around the gym feeling self-conscious and having to cover up in baggy t-shirts and clothes and not wanting to show off my body directly impacts my performance in the gym as well. If I'm not feeling good about myself, I'm not going to perform at my best at that day. It makes sense. But I've had to learn this my own way. And I think a lot of people have had to learn this through trial and error themselves. So I wanted to talk you through kind of my various off-season phases and how I have kind of refined them with each single one to make them that little bit better and to make them more in line with how I want to look, how I want to feel, and how I want to spend the majority of my life. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but I am not someone that lives robotically day to day. Obviously in prep, there is a certain level of rigidity that is not you cannot dispute. It just has to happen. But in an off-season phase or a muscle building phase, I think there is room for a lot more flexibility than some people like to lead you to believe. I know you see on Instagram a lot of people putting pressure on others, saying you must be on prep year round, whether you're in a muscle building phase or in a fat loss phase, you're always on prep. You should treat it like that. You shouldn't miss a meal. You should have a strict meal plan. You should be eating out of Tupperware at events. You shouldn't be socializing. You shouldn't be flexible. You know, if your goal is big enough or if you want it bad enough, you'll do X, Y, Z. But for me, that is just not the way I like to live. And it's not something I think is necessary in order to achieve a physique goal, especially if you are either a lifestyle client and you just want to get ready for the beach or look good on holiday. If you're a photo shoot client who just wants to get in great shape for the photo shoot, or if you're a bikini competitor who needs a certain level of muscle mass, but you don't need to go overboard in terms of high levels of muscularity, because there comes to a point when you are pushing up to get to a level of muscularity suitable for bikini where you're going to pass that criteria and you're going to push past the level that they need in terms of fitting what they want for the category. So I started competing back in 2018. And to be honest, I hadn't really had a proper off season before that. I thought I did. So I did my first summer diet back in 2017 with my first coach. And we transitioned into an off season phase, which I called an off season. I actually called it a bulk at the time. And the word bulk just makes me cringe. I don't know about you, but the word bulk to me just sounds like you're packing on body weight, you're doing like a perma bulk, you're gaining loads of body fat, you're eating whatever you want, pizza, burgers, fries, like a dirty bulk. And to me, it doesn't have like positive connotations with results or with how you look or feel. So I called it a bulk at the time because I was kind of in that realm of fitness influencers where they all called it a bulk. But I wasn't very structured with my approach, almost to the other extent where I was way too lax. So I wasn't tracking my food at all. I wasn't really staying accountable to my body weight or my visual changes. I was kind of just eating whatever I wanted to and just using the excuse of calling it a bulk. I wasn't telling my coach my body weight. I wasn't weighing myself because I didn't want to know my weight. And I got to a point where I was probably in the suboptimal ranges of body fat on the other end, that I had gained too much body fat too quickly. So I don't think it was as progressive or structured or productive as I would have liked it to be if I had had some structure in there. So I did that off season from maybe about August 2017 till around the end of December. I started my first prep for my very first show in January of 2018. I did that prep from January till July, I think. And then I went into another off-season phase. Now, this one was a little bit different because I started off with one coach. I'd already gone on to my second coach. And then I slowly transitioned into a new coach. Well, I didn't slowly transition. I moved to a new coach in my off-season phase. So I'm on my third coach already. So guys, please don't judge me, because it takes trial and error to find the coach that suits you. Maybe I could do another podcast about this, but I know people get a lot of bad reputation for being coach hoppers, but until you find the one that works for you, there's no harm in trying out different styles and methods and people to see who suits you as an individual. Because now I find Joe, I can't see myself ever leaving. Anyway, on to my third coach. And this one was a little bit better in terms of the structure of the off season. I did track my food the entire time. I was progressive with my training. I was more kind of in a routine of it. And I didn't go completely balls to the wall and have like, just eat what I wanted, basically. And I gained some weight, but I'd say I probably I'd say I probably could have pushed up a little bit harder that time. So I kind of went the opposite way, where I started my off season at maybe 52-ish kilos. And by the end of the off season, which was, May of next year, I'd only gotten up to 58 kilos. That's only about 7 kilos in that many months. It's not a lot, so it was quite slow and steady. But for me at the time, I don't think I would have been mentally prepared to push up anymore, because I already felt quite unconfident and self-conscious in my body at the time, even though when looking back now, I realize how lean I was still. Like 58 kilos is very lean for me. So I think I probably could have pushed up that bit more at that time, but I know mentally I probably wasn't ready for it. So I think it was quite a productive off season, because then I transitioned into my second prep, which started May 2018, dieted down for that, did relatively well in my shows, obviously came first in my Irish show. I qualified for the WNBF finals in New York that year. So I did pretty well. I then transitioned into another off season with God Horror, another coach. And then things obviously went awry because 2020, the big year of you know what. So things aren't going to be optimal that year. Training from home, there was a month when I was in the UK that I didn't train at all because I moved to the UK after the first lockdown, and then lockdown happened again in winter, and I just had no capacity to train at all. And I was just so traumatized with home training that I just couldn't do it. So I honestly just took a month off training in December of 2020. So it wasn't the most optimal of starts to an off season. I'd only had like 2 or 3 months in the gym before all the lockdowns happened, and I couldn't get to a gym to train. So I think I managed my nutrition pretty well at that point. I was obviously tracking my calories. I think I was having like one off-plan meal a week with my family where we had like a Deliveroo takeaway or something. It was like the highlight of our week because there was nothing else to do. And obviously moving to the UK, that's when things went a bit askew because obviously my routine changed. I had a different situation with my job. I changed gym. I changed country. And I probably let my diet slip a bit. But then I transitioned to another coach. This is me just kind of outing myself as being a coach hopper, but I promise you there is an end to the story. And I went into a full off season with him knowing that I knew he would prep me, because with my previous coach, he didn't prep females. He didn't feel morally comfortable with that, which is absolutely fine. I really respected him for adhering to his morals and not prepping someone that he didn't feel comfortable about prepping, which is absolutely fine. So I moved to a new coach just so I could finish the off season with him and then transition into a prep. But then honestly, all hell broke loose in my personal life, and it got to the point where I stopped tracking. I stopped weighing myself. I stopped having any sort of structure with my diet or anything at all. I was very sedentary. I wasn't doing my expenditure like I normally would, and I gained a lot of weight. Like I went from leaving Ireland at maybe around 62 kilos. And then when I finally faced the fear and weighed myself, I was up to 69, which is my heaviest weight I've ever been. I've never been that heavy in my life. And it wasn't a good 69. It was a 69 that was put down to excessive eating, not enough expenditure, a lot of stress, a lot of emotion, a lot of overwhelm. So I basically spent the entirety of 2021 dieting that all off because I just knew it needed to come off. So that off season wasn't the most productive, obviously, because initially I was training from home. And then after that, I just gained way too much body fat and body weight. And I realized from gaining all that weight how much it impacted my performance and my self-belief and my self-image, and how I realized the hard way that gaining that much body weight for myself wasn't conducive to progress or getting the results that I wanted or gaining the muscle mass that I wanted. Because I know some females can completely switch off from their off season and literally tick the boxes, eat the food, do the training, and just get on with it and not worry about their bodies. But for me, that is just not something I can do. I need to feel good mentally and physically in myself and in my body and feel confident in order to make the progress that I want. So I kind of took that learning curve from that off season, even though it wasn't the most productive. I do believe I got something out of it because I realized that is not what I wanted to do. So then when I did my next off season after that diet, I did have that in mind, but I also knew that I hadn't really had a productive off season yet where nothing went wrong, because something had went wrong every single time, or else it wasn't optimal or it wasn't productive for some reason. So when I started my off season with Joe, I said to him, look, do what you need to do. I'm going to try and switch off. It's going to be hard for me, and I probably will have slip ups and I'll probably get upset and I'll probably find it difficult. But I trust you wholeheartedly with my progress and my results, and I am paying you to get me to where I want to be. So I'm going to put my faith in your hands and allow you to take the reins on this. So I started my off season with him in October of 2021 after that massive diet. I literally was dieting from April to September to get back to 57 kilos. So I wasn't even stage lean. I probably had another 4 kilos to come off, 5 kilos to come off before I was stage lean, and I've been dieting for that long. So we didn't have the best starting point. And that was another thing with this off season, is that I didn't have the best position coming into that off season because my calories were super low. I wasn't stage lean, but I already had an impacted thyroid. I already had low testosterone levels. I'd already like kind of compromised my health in that respect in order to get that body weight off. So I wasn't coming to Joe in like a primed position to gain muscle mass. So he kind of had to work with what he had. And I felt sorry for him in a way for put him through that. But I started at 57 kilos and we started pushing up. It was around end of December where I got up to around 65 kilos, where I said to him, look, this is starting to be uncomfortable for me and I don't think I can push any longer. So we did a mini diet in the January, just a 4-week cut. I did quite well on that. I ended up coming down maybe like 4 kilos in 4 weeks, which is pretty good for me. And we did another off-season phase up until, what was it? Was it April or May? I think it was April when I started prep, and that's when I started my prep for last year. So that was definitely the most productive off-season I'd had at that point. But still, I'd got to the point where I was not comfortable in my own skin. By the end of the off-season, as I started prep, I was up to 67 kilos, which again is very heavy for me. And by the way, these body weights are all relative to me. Like, you might feel amazing at 67 kilos, but for me and my body structure and my height and all of that, it just wasn't a comfortable level of body fat for me as an individual. So I was feeling very uncomfortable. I was wearing baggy t-shirts in the gym all the time. I wasn't really showing myself off. I didn't really want to get dressed up or go out or wear normal people clothes. And I find the most difficult thing in an off season when you push body weight up is when you have a full-time job like myself and you have to dress professionally. So I work in clinical trials. So I mainly work from home, and then I go to site, like various hospitals across the country, where I go to the site, I talk to the study staff, I make sure they're following the study procedures, and I basically monitor everything and make sure they're, up to date, up to scratch with everything. But I was really struggling to know what to wear at that point. I was not able to wear trousers because the waistband was digging into my stomach as I was sitting down, and I find that really distracting when I was trying to work because I was just consciously thinking about my stomach the whole time. So I ended up having to wear dresses all the time, and I was wearing these absolute tents that I have since thrown out because I have negative associations with them and how I felt about myself at the time. Just to cover myself up, and so that when I sat down I didn't have anything digging into my belly or anything. So I think that was the hardest, because usually day to day when you wear leggings or when you wear baggy t-shirts to the gym or big hoodies and stuff like we all do, you don't really notice how your body impacts you. But when you wear normal people clothes, when you have an office job, when you have to dress professionally or business casually or whatever, I think you then realize how uncomfortable you feel. So after my prep that just ended in October of 2022, which was last year, I had a conversation with Joe, and I actually had this conversation with him on one of my show days as well. I said, Joe, I love what we did the past 6 months. My past 6 month off season, I think we made great progress. I look completely different on stage than I did before. And I really think I needed to do that massive push-up phase then, where I got uncomfortable. I ate the food, I gained body weight and body fat, because it allowed me to build the muscle that I needed to be competitive. Like, I went from getting no first call out, no placing at a PCA, to getting first call out and third place in a PCA again, in a busier show with him. So I knew I made the strides I needed to make changes to my physique that I needed to make, if that makes sense. But after that, I talked to him and I said, look, I know we did this massive push-up phase. It worked. But honestly, I don't want to do that again. And I think as a bikini competitor especially, you shouldn't need to do that every single time. Like, everyone needs to gain muscle initially, of course. Like, bikini is no longer an entry-level category. You can no longer just train for 6 months and do a show. It's not about that. Like, they do expect a lot of muscularity, particularly in like the PCA and the Two Bros federations. So I was aware that that was necessary, but I just said, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to feel that self-conscious in my body where I'm covering up every day. I don't want to hide myself in baggy t-shirts. I don't want to go to my hospitals and feel uncomfortable being a professional and not feeling like I can wear, smart casual clothes, wear black trousers, wear a nice top. and I don't want to feel like I have to hide myself anymore. And he completely agreed with me, and he said, look, we did that one time, we needed to do it because you didn't have the muscle mass you needed. We don't have to do that again because you put in the work and you've invested the time. We can have a much better off season this time where you feel comfortable. And to give him his credit, he has been so good with that this year, because I have very much stayed stubborn and stayed hard set on what I wanted to do this year as an off season, and he has completely gone ahead with it and respected what I wanted out of it. Because when I came off stage in October, I kind of asked him, like, can I compete next year? Because when I finished competing, I just couldn't see how I would take a whole year off competing, because it had been my whole life from April till October. And he basically said to me, Holly, look, we can compete next year if you want to, but I'm just going to be honest and say that you will not have made significant improvements to make huge changes to your physique or to improve your placings. So if you are okay with that, and if you want to prep again and kind of get the same placings and look the same, that's absolutely fine. But if you want to make the improvements and if you want to start winning all those shows, we need to take time off. So that kind of hit home with me. And I realized I needed to invest the whole of 2023 in an off season, but with the caveat that I was going to do it my way. And I think we've worked really well together as a team on this, where we have been progressively increasing my calories. I've been progressing my training. I've been gaining body weight, of course, but it's never gotten sloppy. And we've always caught it early before it gets sloppy. So I did my first kind of set of an off-season phase mid-October. I was progressing and massing all the way until April without any need for a diet, without any mini cuts or anything like that, because it was going so well. I was gaining slowly but steadily. I wasn't gaining heaps of body weight. I didn't rebound post-show or have a huge amount of weight gain post-show because I was super careful. And we had a really, really good run of it. Like, I was following the same training split from October to April, and I was making progress week on week. I was gaining muscle. I was looking better. And my shape, like comparing my progress photos this year to this time last year, or the last time I was this body weight, I look completely different. Like, my physique looks so much more like a bikini competitor now than it did before. I'm just so happy with that. But I think doing it my way has really made a difference to being able to do this long off season, because I think if I had done it the push-up way and the big push-up aggressive nature of it, I wouldn't have been able to sustain it for this long, because my last off season was only 6 months. This one's going to be at least a year, maybe more, depending on when I compete next year. And I knew for it to be sustainable and for me to not literally hate every single second of my life, I needed to do it in a moderate fashion that wasn't going to be overkill or overboard or get too fat too soon and feel heavy and sluggish. So anytime it has gotten to the point where you might be teetering on the side of me being uncomfortable, you pull back, but that's only happened one time. So in April, I got to the point where I said, look, Joe, I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm feeling sluggish. It wasn't even that I had lost my appetite, but I just didn't want to eat. I just felt so heavy and uncomfortable, and like my stomach just felt so bloated all the time that I just said, I can't push this much food anymore, because at the time I was getting up to like 3,500 calories to gain the weight I needed to, and it was just way too much and overwhelming for me. So before things got too sloppy, we pulled back. I did a 4-week mini cut, and this was really interesting because although I did a 4-week mini cut, my weight is like honestly the most fluctuating thing in the world. Like, it gets to the point where I tell my clients, like, when they freak out about their fluctuations, I have to say, well, look at mine, honestly, because Joe has to be so aware of what's going on with my body, because he can't really take my scale weight as an indication of my progress because it's just all over the place. So started my diet. I think I was like 64.5 kilos at the time. Literally within 4 days, I dropped like 2 kilos. So I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to lose like 5 kilos in these 4 weeks. This could be bad. And then I ended up finishing my diet basically at the same weight that I started, which is a bit of a head fuck. But my visuals look so much better. Like, I dropped all the fluid, my waist looks so much tighter. You could see definition and lines that you couldn't see before. I was honestly so happy with how my physique responded after those 4 weeks. And I felt really, really good again, which just goes to show that the scale weight means nothing. So it's not the fact that I was 64.5 kilos. It's just the fact that I was holding a lot of fluid. I was feeling bloated in my stomach. Obviously, when you're eating 3,500 calories, it's all going to be sitting in your gut all day, isn't it? So not having all that food in my body, having a bit of a rest, like giving my digestion a bit of a break, and just having 4 weeks of being in a deficit just made me feel so much better. And to be honest, like even since that, so I ended that like end of May-ish, and it's now July, mid-July. God, time is absolutely flying. I feel still fine in my body. I check in, I'm looking for the positives, I'm seeing the shapes, I'm seeing how much more shapely and how much more muscular I look compared to last year. And I really appreciate my body. And another thing that I really have noticed is that although I'm wearing a baggy t-shirt right now because I'm sitting at home, I don't feel like I want to hide myself or cover myself up. And I actually really haven't felt like that at all this off season. In my previous off seasons, I was wearing those baggy t-shirts. I was hiding away in the gym. I wasn't wearing shorts. I didn't feel that I could show off my body because I didn't feel proud of it. But this time, obviously, it's summer. It's been ridiculously hot, especially in Manchester when it's not a warm climate. It rains and it's cold all the time, but it's been really, really warm. And feeling like I've been able to wear crop tops, to wear shorts, to wear whatever I wanted has been so liberating. And this is why I wanted to do this podcast, because for those of you who have felt that you need to do these massive push-ups in order to gain muscle, and you've gained a lot of body weight and a lot of body fat, and you're sitting there feeling uncomfortable, you're covering yourself up in those baggy t-shirts, you're wearing big hoodies to hide your body, you don't want to wear normal clothes, the idea of wearing shorts just absolutely terrifies you. I just wanted to talk you through my experience and show you that there is a different way that you can do this. You don't have to do these aggressive push-ups if you don't want to. There is a more moderate way where you can still make progress. You can still build up your calories. You can still progress in the gym. You can still gain muscle without literally hating every single second of your life. Because if you're going to dedicate a significant amount of time to an off season, why do you want to do it feeling shit about yourself? Like, you want to spend that time investing in yourself, feeling good that you're doing it, feeling like a sense of accomplishment because you are investing in your physique development and your overall progress in your training. So I just wanted to let you know that it is completely possible. Like, by definition, you do not need a huge amount of food to gain muscle. And I think Adam from Team Elite Physique talks about this all the time with his competitors. And look at him. He has a lot of pros on his roster. He has Olympians on his roster. He has Olympia winners on his roster. And he does not believe in big off seasons. And while I think there is a time and place for them if you should want to, or if you have a certain goal that means you want to get absolutely jacked out of your mind, I don't think you can do that unless you literally go all in. But if you have physique development goals, if you want to build a little bit of muscle, build your glutes, build your shoulders, whatever, I do think you can do that in a more moderate way. It only takes a small surplus. Like, honestly, if you find your maintenance level of calories and add enough calories to gain maybe 0.25 to 0.5% of body weight per week, that is an absolutely acceptable rate of gain for you. You don't need to gain a kilo a week. You don't need to pack on lots of body weight really quickly to see results. You just need to be in a modest surplus. That could be 200 calories above your maintenance calories. It doesn't have to be like massive amounts of food that you're shoveling down, that you can't stomach, that you're losing your appetite, that you feel sick when you're eating. Like, that is not a way to live, and that's not a way I want to live, because I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm a big foodie. I absolutely love my food. And I was kind of not enjoying the fact that I was losing my love of food, because I was kind of seeing it as an enemy almost, because it was making me feel so bloated and so uncomfortable in myself. So establishing a small surplus of like 200, 300 calories, wait a week, see what your body weight does. If you gain at the rate of gain that you want to, then keep going. That's absolutely fine. If it's a bit too aggressive, cut back a little bit of calories and, just have a smaller surplus than you had initially created. If your rate of gain wasn't fast enough, then just add a little bit more. And that's why I think it's so important to have a coach in the off season or in a muscle building phase, as well as in a diet, because it's very hard to make those objective decisions when you are kind of biased towards being leaner. Like myself, like I love being lean. I literally could walk around stage lean all the time. I don't find it difficult. Like at the end of my last prep, I was eating like 2,200 calories and maintaining a stage lean physique, and I was loving it. I wasn't doing any cardio. So for me, gaining body weight is difficult for me mentally to accept when I find it so easy to be lean, and I prefer how I look leaner. And other people have told me that they like my face when it has a bit of body fat on it, but I personally like my little lean face. I think I look really cute. So having that bias makes it difficult for me to call the shots on myself in an off-season phase. So this is why it's really important to have a coach to direct you and have a look at the objective data, look at your body weight, look at your visuals. If you're achieving the rate of gain that you want to achieve, then you don't need to make any changes. If it's a bit too slow, you can add a bit of food. If it's a bit too fast, you can drop a bit of food. I think people forget that as well, that when you're in an off-season phase and you notice you're gaining weight a bit too quickly, you can pull that back. You don't have to keep going as you are and just kind of have to diet really, really soon. You can say, right, okay, I gained a kilo this week. It's a little too fast for my liking. So I'm going to pull that back a little bit and maybe drop my calories slightly. So I'm still in a surplus, but not in a massive surplus. Or you could even spend a couple of weeks at maintenance saying, okay, I gained a kilo this week. I want to hold it here for a couple of weeks. Let's just drop my food down to maintenance and then I can progress again. Like there are no hard and fast rules about how you should off season or how you should muscle build. It definitely depends on you as an individual, what you're comfortable with, where you perform your best, how you feel your best, and how you want to look day to day. And this is something I am quite conscious of because obviously I am a coach, but I'm also have a full-time job. And it's very important to me that I feel comfortable in how I look day to day. Like I don't want to be around normal humans and for me to stick out like a sore thumb because I look weird, because I'm like have so much body weight on me, or because I look super jacked. I want to be able to wear nice dresses. I want to be able to look feminine. I don't want to look manly or masculine in my clothes. And I don't think there's a need for that. I don't need to pack on huge amounts of body fat because there's no need for that. Again, at this point in time, I only need to make small improvements to my physique. And it's a trade-off, of course. I am happy for it to take a little bit longer to get to my goal, if that means that I feel good the whole time. I would rather take a year to gain muscle, the amount of muscle that I need, than take 6 months and feel shit for every single minute of those 6 months. That is just a trade-off that I am willing to accept. And that is something that you need to do, is figure out what trade-offs am I willing to accept and stay aligned with that. And I think that will get you a very, very long way. But another argument I have for the big push-ups is I think a lot of people don't realize that when you gain muscle, obviously you gain body fat, but if you put yourself in a bigger surplus, there's only a certain extent of that surplus that's going towards muscle building. So if you are in a surplus and you're gaining a certain amount of muscle and you've hit that threshold of the maximum amount of muscle that you can build, any more food that you eat is going to go to body fat. So it's not like a more is more situation. It's not a linear, the more you eat, the more muscle you gain. There is a ceiling of how much muscle you can gain in a certain period of time. And also, any additional muscle that you might gain from being in that massive surplus, you're going to have to diet off eventually. And when you diet down and bring your body fat back down to normal levels, you're going to diet off some muscle. It's just inevitable. Like we can use a lot of tools to retain that muscle mass via food or via training or via PEDs, if that's something that you do yourself. You can maintain that muscle to a certain extent, but if you're getting to suboptimal levels of body fat and you're getting super lean, you're going to end up dropping a little bit of muscle mass, and that's just kind of inevitable for most people. So have a think about that when you do a big push-up, is that number one, there's a ceiling into how much muscle you can actually build at a time before the rest of the surplus goes to body fat. And number two, like the additional muscle that you do build, some of it is going to come back off again. Like it's not going to all be solidified and you're going to have to diet some of it off. So I think that is something to consider there. So that is just my way of saying that if you're worried about building muscle and you think that it's going to be detrimental to your body image, or you're afraid of gaining weight, or you're afraid of gaining too much body weight, if you're afraid of gaining too much body fat, I just wanted to tell you that you don't have to do it that way. You don't have to do an aggressive push-up phase. You don't have to gain crazy amounts of body weight, get super, super heavy, gain a lot of body fat, feel uncomfortable year round. Like you can still make physique improvements while staying in shape without losing your overall physique, while staying relatively lean. Obviously, you can't really stay super lean if you have a goal of building muscle, but you don't have to get crazy out of shape. You don't have to get fat. You can maintain your shape and stay in good condition and have a good physique year round while still making improvements. And it is possible. Like, just look at fitness influencers who have great physiques year round. They make improvements slowly but surely, but they still look good year round and they don't feel super uncomfortable because for their job, they can't. They have to look good year round. And I think that's something that I talk about when my clients come to me, is just setting that expectation of, okay, when we build muscle, we are going to gain some body weight. Some of it's going to be body fat, but I'm going to make sure that we have everything set up in place that the majority of those calories are going to muscle building, and whatever body fat we do gain along the way, I'll make sure that it's managed. We'll pull back when we need to, and when the time comes, we'll diet off the body fat, and we will reveal the great shape that you have created in that muscle building phase. So guys, I hope that was helpful and you enjoyed my little ramble about that. If you do have any questions, if you have any suggestions for the podcast, if you have any topics or guests you'd like to have it on, please let me know. I'm all ears. And also, if you enjoy this episode, please take a screenshot, share it to your story, tag myself. I'm at Holly_Physique Collective on Instagram. I would really appreciate it. And I know a few of you guys have been messaging me saying that you've been really enjoying the podcast. And that means so much to me. Like, I appreciate it so much because I love my little podcast family. I love you guys listening in, and I love being in your ears, whether you're on your steps, whether you are on your cardio, whether you're on the way to the gym, in the car. I don't mind, but I'm hoping I am keeping you company on this fine day. And I hope you guys are having a great week so far. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, for listening, and we will catch you next time.